You don't make enough money. You're not quite sure how to make more. Is it more people? Is it more people per hour? I don't think that's it. In order to increase your rate, you have to provide more value. It's simple. You shouldn't have to work so hard to make money. You need to create a sustainable living. That's what you deserve. You deserve the ability to buy a car when you need to, a nice home, have a nice profession, to have a career path. And the problem is, if you don't know how to provide the value that your clients need, you're never going to be able to make more money. So what are some of the things that your clients need? You need to be able to solve their problems. And here's what I mean. I don't mean you need to solve every problem for every person who comes to see you with any issue. You're not a physical therapist, you're not a doctor, sure. But you do need to be able to help people get out of pain, and you do need to be able to help people to perform. So I would ask you to ask yourself, how good are you at helping people to get out of pain? Are you mediocre? If somebody comes to you and says, I have back pain, how do you approach it? What's your first step? Do you ask them, okay, if you have pain, can you demonstrate the action that causes you pain? The reason that that is such an important question is you can begin to break down the components of the movements that cause them pain. You gotta simplify how you answer a question. If a client comes in and says, I have pain, they're essentially asking, how can you solve it? So if you simply ask them to demonstrate how they have pain, then you can start to understand the mechanics of the movement that cause them pain. Now, a long-term strategy to get out of pain is gonna need an appropriate program and implementation and needs and understanding of physiology and movement biomechanics, and that's not what we're here to handle. What I'm sharing with you are increasing your capability to provide more value. That's the key. If you want to make more money, you have to be able to help more people solve more problems. If a client needs to see a physical therapist, a chiropractor, a nutritionist, and 3 or 4 or 5 people to solve their issue, you need to be able to solve some of those problems. If a person needs more detailed work, of course, that's not for you, but what I am saying is that inside of the mind of your client, you need to be a valuable resource, and therefore you need to increase your ability, your competence to solve problems. So one of the first pillars to increasing your rate is increase the value that you can give. So you need to start to survey your clients and start to record and take notes. What are the common problems I'm running into? Or is it neck pain or shoulder pain or hip pain or ankle pain or knee pain or lots of pains people have? Each one of them given, you will see a different representation of the pain. If somebody has knee pain, if 2 different people have knee pain, they might not present in exactly the same way. So you're going to need to have some grasp and understanding of how to get 2 different people out of the same pain, the same knee pain or whatever the case may be. Now, along with your capability to problem solve, you have to generally be able to communicate. If somebody asks you, you tell them, I would like for you to do this exercise. Now I'm going to demonstrate this exercise for you. How do you sum up and give them the bigger picture of the exercise in general? There are a couple frameworks that I use for implementing the transference of information. You want to make it simple and easy for the other person to understand what you're saying, right? If you make things too hard, these people just won't get it, and that's all right. It's your job to help ease the speed that people get things from you. You need to make it faster and easier for them to become an expert. Here's a little framework that I like for increasing somebody else becoming an expert. You have to tell them why you're doing it. If you have an exercise to get somebody out of pain, or you have an idea of some movement, or this is the third exercise in your program, or if you're delivering online training, here's the third video, you need to be able to tell the person, why is this important? I'm giving you this exercise third and not first because you have to be able to relate it. They have to be able to grasp what you're saying. If you make things too complicated, too foggy, too difficult for the person to understand, they're just not going to feel good around you. Now, I'm not promoting the idea of blindly enhancing the feelings of somebody in terms of stroking their ego. Oh, you're so good, you're so wonderful, I love everything about you, unless you mean it. But what I'm talking about is really increasing the value and the impact on a person's life. One way to do that is solve the problems that they need solving, so they don't need to spend more time traveling, more energy, more money going elsewhere unless it's absolutely needed. In that regard, you should be an amazing team player and a part of the healthcare team in order to help that person achieve their goals. You need to be able to email the other professional or call them or exchange some level of correspondence where there's a common language. Normally, my first suggestion to you would be allow the other person, if they're a domain expert, if it's a physical therapist, then they're an expert at helping somebody recover from an ACL surgery. They may not be an expert in teaching somebody how to squat. That's probably your profession or your designated arena or your wheelhouse. But if you're working in conjunction with a client, another healthcare professional, that's an opportunity to enhance your knowledge base. It's an opportunity to learn to work as a team player. And to be truthful, this is where it's all headed. This is the future of the profession of personal training, the profession of physical therapy, the profession of chiropractic. If you look at these trends, what people are doing is they're learning to do more. Their scope of practice to a certain degree is expanding and expounding on the services that they can offer. So I'm not advocating that you go and add another degree or another certification. What I am saying is that you should be able to solve problems, but equally so, you need to be able to work well with other people in service of the objective of the client reaching their outcomes. So you have to be able to have some level of correspondence that is productive, some sort of implementation practice if there are suggestions, and a way to get back to the healthcare practitioner and say, hey, I did X, or hey, have you noticed Y as a result of our intervention? So in order to increase your rate, in order to make more money, in order to buy a home and buy cars and pay for your kids' college if you want to have them, save for retirement, retire, you have to have some fundamental pillars. And to increase your rate, you have to increase your value. You have to solve the problems. Along with solving the problems, one of the solutions that people are coming to you for is to get into better shape. Actually, they might be coming to you because they want to get into better shape, but it also feels good to talk to somebody. There are thousands of books that someone can get from Amazon, from the library, on Kindle, YouTube for free, Peloton for a cheap subscription per month. So why is somebody hiring a personal trainer? They're hiring your services because to a certain degree they hope or they desire or they think that you can make what they're trying to achieve easier. Isn't that true? Isn't that true that you would hire somebody? Well, let me ask you a question. Do you pay a trainer? If you don't pay a trainer, if you don't hire somebody, now granted, you might not be able to afford it, depending on what year you're in and your training, depending on how mature your business is, you might not be able to afford hiring a personal trainer. But I know that especially when I began my career, I would spend all of my extra income, anything out of my base needs, on enhancing my knowledge base, because that is continuously where it's all headed. No one can take away from you your experience and your knowledge. And people are going to continue to seek you out as an expert if you can solve some really good problems. And one of those problems is in making somebody so skillful quickly. But if you're not the student, if you don't hire a trainer, how in the world would you know what somebody else is experiencing when they're coming to you? So if you don't already, I really suggest that you hire a personal trainer. I would hire one from the internet, one from your gym, one from your county, or one from your state. You have to know what it's like to learn and to struggle with an exercise in order to look somebody in the eye who's paying you their hard-earned money and say, yeah, that's hard, that's really tough, but I need you to do it. And the spirit of the communication that you're emphasizing to them, they will believe you if it's truthful. They will know. And yeah, it's true, you can tell somebody something and you can say it as if you know it. But I'm telling that if you want to build a reputation, if this is your real profession, not if this is a stepping stone because you got some other degree and you want to train for a few years before you want to go do something else, but if this is what you hope to make your life's work, then it really comes down to getting better year after year and month after month, and that can only come from learning. And when you're trying to communicate the transmission of making it easier for somebody else to learn from you, if you don't know how you learn, I think there's a disconnect. I think there's going to be a disconnect in your communication, in your presence, in your posture, in your tone of voice. You'll probably find that you'll have a couple of different archetypes of clients. Either people will stay with you forever because they don't know where else to go, they like you as a person, they don't know any better. You might have one-offs or 6-month offs or 3-month offs that people come to see you for only a really short period of time and then they don't come back. You can have a lot of these types of clients, but what I'm advocating for you is that there's another source of clientele where people will come to see you to solve a problem. They'll come to see you every few months for a program or for guidance on training or an exercise. And they know you are the person, you're the man, you're the woman, you are the person that they want to seek out and learn from, but that's predicated on you being able to teach them. And that means that you need to know when to shut up. You can't talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. You need to know when to talk. You need to know when you gotta make them feel safe. You have to help them to understand because they're struggling with the concept, and until they embody the concept, they can't actually do the movement. You have to know those nuanced effects, and they can only come from struggling yourself, from learning. And I believe learning is more than just learning how to add more weight to whatever exercise it is that you're doing. There's a certain perception of learning. Oh, I struggle with that. Where did I feel it in my body? How did it feel? And generally, as you start to do this internal inquiry, like, where am I feeling this? What is it achieving? You start to learn how to really manage the feedback of the exercises. And when you're able and capable to manage the feedback, then you can help other people quickly manage the feedback, because that's all essentially exercise is. It's creating a reference. You pick the dumbbell up or the barbell up, you're holding it, it's in your hand, the weight's in front of you, it's creating a different sort of activation pattern in your body. You can ask them, did you feel the weight shift in your feet as a result of picking up the bar? They might say no. That might be an irrelevant source of feedback. You say, okay, well, don't worry about it. Or you might have seen their body move forward onto their toes when they went to pick up the bar for a deadlift. And your question was strategic in the fact that you wanted to know if they were referencing their heel. They say, I'm not even aware of my foot. Then instead of beating them over the head and saying, put your weight in your heel, maybe you want to tuck something under their heel that they can feel. And then they're automatically in their heel because they can feel it, like a bar or a weight, or have them take their shoes off. There's lots of different ways to become creative once you start to understand the variables of getting somebody else to learn quickly. So if you want to increase your rate, if you want to make this a career, a profession, and the outcome of a profession are manyfold. You don't have to own a gym. You don't have to own a brick and mortar, and you also don't have to work for a Globo gym. And you also don't have to work for any small gym. You can run your own business, have some flexibility in terms of where you run it, how you run it. Currently during this shoot, it's during this video, this is during the pandemic, and I'm amazed that my whole business has moved online. So in 2020, who knows what 2021, 2025, 2030, who knows what the future holds for you and your abilities to aspire to greatness. And I really think the ceiling, there is no roof on top of your ability to have more power in your world, and that comes from making more money, more influence in terms of helping more clients achieve more of what they're looking for. So if you want to increase your rate, and that's the big premise of what I'm talking about, is increasing your rate. You have to provide more value. That's solving more problems strategically and in a way that lasts, and you can communicate this. Number two, you make it easier for somebody else to learn. You have to make it easier for somebody else to learn. They're going to start to understand that you're the person who makes it easier for them to learn. Therefore, you're going to have a degree of job security. And a part of being able to increase your rate is you have to have job security, because if you increase your rate, you might lose some clients. But if you do it the right way, and there's a strategic approach, and you do it over a number of years, like every 3 to 5 years, and you give people time to digest it and discern the value. Sure, you might lose some clients, or you might keep a lot of them, and it factors out to where you actually make more money working less, but you get to provide more value. So your program design, how you design these programs, geez, earlier I was spending 20 hours a week writing programs. You need to spend a lot of time thinking about these people. You need to think about how to solve their problems. You need to think about how they learn. And that also comes from being a student of learning. So that's hiring another professional. It's being a consumer of the personal training industry. And it's also branching out. It's starting to learn about personality profiling. If you know this person has a personality that they're a great starter and they're a terrible finisher, then you know that they're going to be kind of really excitable about certain things and not excitable about others. You need to be able to adapt to the person. And there are certain kind of tools and techniques and strategies for adapting person to person. Now, I'm not advocating for anything other than authentic, genuine care. So if you don't care about these people, if you're not genuine, I wish you turn this video off and you don't tune back in, to be truthful with you, because I really love the people that I have the opportunity to work with. I love the ability to be able to help them reach their goals. And so this third pillar that we're going to talk about today is about goals, and just thinking ahead through the next 24 hours, through the next week, through the next 3 months, 6 months, year. I think that's far enough. I think that most people have a challenge, a real gap in thinking about the future. So therefore, I think if most people are not doing that, you have an opportunity. So you need to start thinking, what are your 3 goals for this week professionally? I mean, you can branch this out. I know when I'm learning something, I tend to practice it also in my personal life. in order to gain some intimacy with it. So with my family, we might have 3 goals for the week, or I might have 3 goals for my family. But you need to have professional goals. So in 1 month, it could be, I'm not driven by money. As important as money is, as important as increasing your rate is, it's more important that you increase your value. You'll make more money, and I can describe to you how to charge more, but it's really important that you actually provide more value than you charge. And a part of your ability to do that is to think ahead. What is your client going to need in 1 month based on the exercises you're giving them? What are they going to need in 3 months based on the season, their hobbies, just generally where their body is headed? You have to start thinking about this, and you have to start thinking about it strategically and in your business. In 1 year, what is your hope for how their body moves? Are you able to do that for yourself? If you need to be able to write an exercise program and think about it in terms of a month and 3 months and a year and 6 months, and you have to be able to start to break down some of these longer stretches of time into digestible chunks where you can extract real focus and concentration to teach somebody how to move their body in a new way. And I think that's where personal training is headed. That's where training is headed, is continuously embodying the archetype of a teacher. And teaching, in a sense, means teaching people about their body. And if you want to teach somebody about their body, you have to be thinking not just 1 step ahead of them. You have to think months and years in terms of what their abilities are, what you hope their abilities are, and sometimes work backwards. In 1 year, my hope is that we get here. Where do we need to be in 6 months? Where do we need to be in 3 months? Where do we need to be in 1 month? What does the next session need to look like in service of reaching a month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months from now? When you can start to think in those stretches of time for somebody else outside of yourself, you can sit back and have a greater degree of ease when you're around somebody you're training. And what I'm talking about is really continuously defining your professional identity. What's your legacy as a personal trainer? Do you hope to do this for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years? You want to keep it interesting. One of the easiest ways to keep your work interesting, to care and provide value. Care and provide value. And as you do that, you're going to keep rising to the top in terms of what you can charge because you're doing more. And what you're doing is getting easier for you to do because you've been doing it for a year or 2 years. So I'm going to teach you how to increase your rate. Part of increasing your rate, solve more problems, make it easier for them to learn, and think about them for longer stretches of time. What are their goals? So if you're teaching them and you're making it easier for them to learn, if they learn that, then what? Then what? Then what? Then what? Think in a longer stretch of time. If this is going to be your profession, you might as well become a craftsman. All right, I've talked enough, so hopefully you'll check back in.